So our topic today is men fall in love and bond when ... the number one secret. We're going to dive into this today. So I want to share with you where this video was birthed. This morning I saw the exact same title, and there was a video from John Gray talking about this very same subject. And if you're not familiar with John Gray, he wrote the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I believe it's now a 25-year-old book, somewhere in that range. So it's been around for quite some time, and he's certainly been one of the premier relationship coaches in the industry. Talking primarily, what he tends to emphasize is our attachment through our hormonal components within a relationship, whether it's testosterone, whether it's estrogen. When a man's testosterone is higher, versus a woman's estrogen is higher, how we bond with people, certainly the chemical reaction of things like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. He's certainly one of the premier people to talk about this. But I'll be candid with you. I'm rejecting a bit of the conversation that he had because I think it's limited. And while hormones do play a part in our attachment to another human being, there's a lot more to it that can't really be deciphered by your hormones. And quite frankly, are any of us doing a blood test to see what our hormone levels are? I mean, it's hard to, and I know that certain activities and things affect our hormones. Certainly after a man is physically ejaculated, he has a depletion of testosterone, and most men like to disengage, and that's most men. While some men actually, after physical closeness, wants to actually be closer with his partner. And certainly when a woman experiences an orgasm, she has an increase of oxytocin, she has an increase in estrogen, which bonds us to a person. But there's so much more to a relationship, particularly in the area of love attachment style. But there's something even more important when it comes to love and bonding. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Now, if you're brand new to my channel, you may not be familiar with something known as love attachment style. And I'm going to pull out one of the premier books. And even this content from here is a bit outdated. This is a new study in the last 50 years, love attachment style. And it primarily talks about the 4 different types of love attachment style. Now, and I'm only going to briefly talk about this, but it's important to illustrate this. So bear with me a second if you're a regular watcher on my channel. But there is basically secure attachment style and insecure attachment style. And within insecure, there is fearful avoidant, dismissive avoidant, and anxious preoccupied. So basically, the avoidant people tend to be emotionally unavailable. They tend to be less emotionally expressive. They tend to have walls up. They feel when too much emotion is going on, they withdraw from a relationship. Whereas the anxious person oftentimes doesn't feel enough closeness. They don't feel enough connectivity. And then they turn into a needy person. They can turn into a neurotic person. In some cases, they can have behavior that might seem kind of nutso. Certainly, men oftentimes characterize that behavior from women as being crazy or nuts, but there is a science behind why that happens. The reason why it's important to understand attachment style is I believe the vast majority of human beings have an insecure attachment style. And while the theory suggests it's 50%, I believe it's much higher than 50%. What this means is how we attach to another person can actually be a reflection of the imprinting that happened in our childhood or our adult wounds. And not enough attention is drawn to the fact that many of us in midlife, and I always say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement, roughly speaking, if you're in that age demographic, which represents most of the people who watch my channel, why this is so critically important is many of us have had multiple relationships that did not succeed. In other words, they ended. I don't want to call them failures because I believe every experience has value. And while some people might view it as a failure, I look at it as an ending or a relationship that didn't succeed until death do us part. So why is this so important to understand that, folks, our past experiences directly affects our capacity to bond with someone. It's not about our pheromones and our hormones. That's just a tiny part of it. And it's really only temporary is the chemical reactions because you need an emotional connection with someone to actually build a bonding with another human being. See, sadly, many people are in a transactional relationship, whether it's codependent, interdependent, um, codependent or counterdependent, interdependent is two sovereign beings in the relationship. They come at it from a secure attachment style. And that is a very, very rare experience. Look at how many people, how successful are relationships? If first marriages do end at somewhere between 40 and 50%, and second and third marriages end at 65 to 75%, and if the average person's had multiple relationships that lasted 3 months or longer, I think it's important to recognize if you've had a marriage or two and a couple relationships that lasted 3 months or longer and you're still single, you have a 0% success rate, after 6 attempts. So I think it's important to really understand that our wounds from our past relationships can deeply affect our capacity to fall in love with and bond with a person. Many people have walls up. Many people are jaded. Many people are what's jaded? What's the other word I'm thinking of along the line of jaded? Just resistant. And I'm going to talk about a love acronym in a moment to kind of illustrate this point. So I want everyone to understand this. Okay, let me get into the crux of the number one secret. Have any of you been watching the show Nobody Wants This on Netflix? If you haven't, I highly recommend it. There's 10 episodes, 25 minutes each. You can whip through it very quickly. It's the story of a young couple. They happen to be 40, 45 years old. I've shared this on previous podcasts or videos. And it's about a young rabbi, an up-and-coming rabbi who ends a relationship with basically the perfect woman because there was no heart. There was no spark between the two of them. He meets this shiksa, which is basically a young woman who's non-Jewish, basically, at a party. And you can see the electricity, you can see the chemistry between them, but because of the banter, because of the connection, you see this great chemistry on their first meeting. And then they run into each other again. She actually comes to his temple to see one of his sermons. And they go out and have a good time together. And then there's a mishap that causes for her to run away. And then he meets her for dinner. They end up having a great kiss and they begin a relationship together. Okay, why is this story so important? If you haven't seen it, I'm giving you the Cliff Note version of it. Now, one thing we learn about her, and I'll get to the point in a second. The one thing we learn about her is that she has an anxious attachment style. She is a classic illustration of anxious preoccupied. She sends a text message. He doesn't respond right away. She's losing her mind. Have you ever had that happen? You sent a very vulnerable text message. She felt very vulnerable with that. It was a joke, but after he didn't respond, she felt extremely vulnerable. Her nervous system, and I'm sure within her nervous system, pheromones and hormones played a part of it, but her nervous system was deregulated because she has an insecure attachment style known as anxious preoccupied. You can literally classically see this in this scene. And he didn't see it because he had left his phone in his car. Okay. Why am I bringing this up? Because in the storyline, he represents a secure attachment style and she represents the anxious, preoccupied. And he basically, as he's getting to know her, he's able to accept this aspect of her behavior. And he says, I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere. I can handle you. I want to examine why that is the case. And that's the number one secret we're going to divulge today. Okay, let's forget the word chemistry because they obviously have chemistry for one another. We oftentimes misinterpret chemistry, particularly in the area of lust or limerence. Can someone write it in the chat box? Write this down, or can you write it in the show or the comments? Lust or limerence. Lust is attraction based on physical desire for sexual intimacy. Okay. Limerence is extreme infatuation. Many people confuse that as chemistry in the early stages because it's lacking. And so because of this, we oftentimes think we have chemistry with someone and we're not feeling lust and limerence. We don't think we have chemistry. What they experienced is a spark. They experienced a spark. And you know how that spark was ignited? Through their banter and their flirting, through their banter and their flirting, through their humor. They have matching humor styles. Because they have matching humor styles, they begin developing this number one secret everyone needs to be aware of. And I'm going to go into deeper dive on this in a second. And that they have genuine friendship. Friendship. Now, we confuse friendship as putting people in the friend zone. But if you speak to any couple who's been happily married for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they all say the same thing. They effectively married their best friend. They had a strong like for each other. Let me repeat that. They had a strong like for each other. Like is different than love. Folks, many of you have family members that you love, but you don't like them. You don't necessarily want to be around them, but you love them. Do you know the number one secret for bonding and for love is to genuinely like the person? It so fascinates me how many women I've coached over the years. And if you need support with coaching, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. But it fascinates me. They've gone through a major breakup. And when I asked them, how well did you two like each other? And 9 out of 10 times, she never, they haven't really liked the other person. They feel like because they are attached in an unhealthy way that is love. But like is so different. Many of you, I just want you to go back in your memory banks for a second. And I want you to think of a relationship where you truly like the other person. Do you guys ever remember the movie When Harry Met Sally? I'm not going to go into the particulars of the story, but the end of the movie, by the way, she was neurotic too. She was neurotic in particularly the way she ordered food. It's that they genuinely liked each other. Did any of you watch the show Friends? There was Monica, Rachel, Phoebe, Chandler, Ross, and Joey. And Monica was really neurotic. She was OCD, radically OCD. And Chandler was a guy who just said bad jokes for the most part. Why I'm bringing this up is those Chandler and Monica end up connecting. And what he loves most about her is her neuroses. And in the show, nobody wants this. It's that he's actually in love with that part of her that feels vulnerable, that part of her that feels scared. But he likes her beyond the unhealthy attachment. And certainly, the pheromones and hormones play a part of it, but that's not how you're bonding with a person. How you bond with a person is when you really, really, really like them. So I have an acronym I want to share with you centered around love. And I had this conversation this morning with a friend of mine. She's a coach. She's a law of attraction coach. Her name is Mary Beth Schroeder, like butter, Schroeder. And she gave me she actually posted this on one of our Facebook page about love. And it made me think about, I invite everyone, and somebody please write this down, this acronym for love, because this is critically important for the success of a relationship beyond the pheromones, beyond the hormones, beyond the beyond the love attachment style. For love to occur, first, for it to really occur, you have to have, the L stands for lifestyle, lifestyle compatibility. These days, we have so many people hooking up, but their lifestyles are incompatible. Take a look at the original Golden Bachelor, Gary, Jerry, whatever the heck his name is, and Teresa. They most likely fell in lust and limerence with each other, not genuine love or friendship. But eventually their relationship didn't work out, is because of lifestyle incompatibility. This is a big issue for many of us in midlife that have fully curated lives. The Golden Bachelorette is going to have the exact same issue, whether their lifestyles are compatible. So the L stands for lifestyle. The O stands for open heart, open heart. The emotional availability for a person is directly, particularly direct. By the way, you have to write this down. Okay. This is so critically important, because remember I said friendship. Okay. But in that friendship, the desire for each other has to exceed the pain and hurt and differences in each other's lives. Now, the pain and hurt represents childhood wounds or traumas, the love attachment style issues, or the pain and hurt of losing a treasured relationship and actually healing beyond that. Many people have childhood wounds of abandonment, inconsistent love, or worse, abuse in their childhood. But more importantly, past relationships. I'm going to be very candid with you. It's taken me well over a year to heal from my relationship that ended the year previously. It's taken me well over a year. And I still know that there's more healing, but I feel more open now because I've been doing a deep dive with therapy, with personal development, with self-help and spiritual work. In fact, if you're not familiar with my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? It's a journey of personal development, self-help, spiritual work. There's links below to get a copy of all the books I recommend. This is not about dating, it's about healing. So that desire exceeds the pain, the hurt, and the differences. Remember, I'm telling the story about nobody wants this? They have a gigantic difference between them, is their culture. And also, he's a rabbi and he needs a partner, most likely that will convert. This is a major difference, and it's become a focal point. But his desire for her, that friendship and desire, exceeds the differences. Now, some of our differences are like, hey, I always jokingly use, I like to put the forks down in the dishwasher, and some people like to put it forks up. That's one difference. But certainly when we have somebody that has an anxious attachment style and an avoidant attachment style, that's a gigantic difference between two people. And you have to navigate that for a relationship to ever become healthy. You might have the way you do things different. There's very rare you get two people that are exactly alike. So coming back to the O of love, an open heart, emotional availability, what we're really talking about is emotional maturity. And that desire has to exceed the fears, the pains, the hurts, the differences, okay? The V stands for values. Each person, believe it or not, has unique values for them, unique values. Oh, by the way, for those that ask, the O stands for open heart. Please forgive me, open heart, okay? The V values, some people value health way more than other people. That's, at least I noticed this in Los Angeles. Healthy lifestyle is a gigantic value. For some people, travel is their highest value, is adventure, seeing the world. And for some people, they could care less about doing that. That can be a big bone of contention of differences if you don't share similar values for the most part. By the way, is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. And by the way, most of us value honesty, integrity, trust. Those are things. I'm talking beyond that. Okay. And the E stands for expectations for the future. And while I'm not a fan of the expectations of the future, what I believe what Mary Beth is really alluding to is that you both have a vision for commitment. Bump, bump, bump. See, going back to the show, Nobody Wants This, he is a secure person, but in other words, he's emotionally available. He's emotionally mature. He's got good communication skills because he learned it becoming a rabbi. But more importantly, he is committed to commitment. Expectation to the future mean you are committed. You have a vision of what you want your future to look like. Again, I'm not a fan of the E for expectation. Maybe I'll come up with a different letter, another thing that represents E. But it's a very fair, in other words, if you're going to begin dating someone, it's important to evaluate all of this. And again, my coaching is all about discernment. When you become discerning with somebody, did I lose my connection? All right, looks like I got it back. Sorry about that. All right, so I hope, okay, listen, I covered most of what I needed to cover, what I wanted to share here. Listen, did this resonate with you? Did this land with you? I hope it did. I hope you recognize that there are a lot of moving parts for a successful relationship that goes beyond our pheromones and our hormones that John Gray talks about. No disrespect to him. I'm just here to offer a broader view of the way I look at things. And I will tell you, I invite you all, when you are beginning that dating process, building the friendship, building trust through social activities, through hobbies, through mutual interests, through spending time with family and friends, will strengthen the relationship and hopefully build that secret we talked about, or friendship. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. Post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to follow the books I recommend, all listed below.